What's going on, everyone? Kevin Durant has officially requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets, and one of the destinations in which he wants to go to are the Phoenix Suns. And now the Phoenix Suns make a ton of sense, right? They were just in the finals, not last year, but the year prior. They did have an underwhelming playoffs this past playoffs, losing to the Dallas Mavericks, but they are still a team very much in contention. They still are a team that very likely could be in the NBA Finals again next year. They have some young talent. They have, Chris Paul. They have Devin Booker, who just got an extension in and of himself. And Kevin Durant would make a ton of sense to go there. He's the type of player that could put you over the top. I mean, if Kevin Durant was in the finals when the Suns were in the finals last time, it's very likely that they could have won that series. I mean, Kevin Durant was a toe on the line away from being in the finals against the Phoenix Suns team. So who knows what would have happened? Unfortunately, that's going to be one of the biggest what ifs ever. But going into a trade for the Phoenix Suns for Kevin Durant, they have some complications and they have some things that they have to work around. For example, they cannot trade Devin Booker because the Brooklyn Nets have Ben Simmons, who is on a rookie extension, and by the CBA rules and stuff, you can't have multiple of those guys. Plus, Devin Booker just signed an extension in and of himself. So you imagine that they're not going to trade. He's likely going to be off limits. Plus, on top of that, I'd imagine that the Phoenix Suns would want to keep their big three intact, right? If they were to get Kevin Durant, they would have a big three of Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Kevin Durant. I mean, just that trio would be incredible because Chris Paul is the ultimate point guard. He is the ultimate, pass first guy. And the beauty that Kevin Durant adds to this team is something that we saw in the Dallas series. Like if Chris Paul and Devin Booker don't have it going, then the Phoenix Suns are basically dead in the water, right? Devin Booker had a just terrible, atrocious game. And the issue is if he's not putting up, somewhere between 20 and 30 night in and night out, this team doesn't have the pieces usually to win, especially in a playoff series. And Chris Paul has a lot of concerns. He has heavy workloads at times, and that's not good for him with his age, his injury history, things like that. You get a guy like Kevin Durant to add to these two, that alleviates so much of the burden. Not just that, but Kevin Durant played on a team with the Golden State Warriors, so he knows how to fit in. He knows how to work within the frames of the team. You got a good coach. You got, the leadership of Chris Paul. You have Devin Booker, who is another go-to scorer. And Chris Paul doesn't have to have those games where he needs to score 20. Because you have Kevin Durant who can get you 25 to 30 night in and night out. You have Devin Booker who can get you, 25 to 30 night in and night out. And if one is having an off night, you only need the other one. And then if they're both having a mediocre night, then Chris Paul can kind of have that role of hey, I need to go get 20, which he can do. It's just you can't rely on him in this day and age for him to do that on a regular basis. And so having that other just scoring threat would be incredible. Plus you have three guys that can basically operate within the mid-range, which Chris Paul and Devin Booker are arguably the two best in the league when it comes to that. But Kevin Durant can also knock it down from the three-point range, from pretty much anywhere on the court. He's arguably the greatest scorer we've ever seen from just a pure scorer standpoint. He's just absolute mismatch. And Chris Paul to have those scoring threats with him would be unbelievable. I mean, Chris Paul would set Kevin Durant up like he's never been set up before. I mean, he'd hit him in all his perfect spots, all the sweet spots. He would make it just so easy for Kevin Durant, similar to what happened with Golden State. But that wasn't so much that, he was getting into his spots and Chris Paul was setting him up or, Steph was setting him up or anything. It was just that he just had so many open shots because you had Clay and you had Steph as these threats. So it just made things so much easier for Kevin Durant, which, if he goes to the Phoenix Suns, would be a similar sort of formula for him. But any trade, if you're not doing Devin Booker, you have to imagine is going to look something along these lines. You're going to have to give up Ayton, obviously. The Phoenix Suns and the entire world know that relationship is done and that the Phoenix Suns are moving off of Ayton. Wherever he goes, whatever happens, very likely he will be a part of any Kevin Durant deal. It's likely going to be a sign and trade, things like that. You got to imagine Jay Crowder, just for salary reasons. I would imagine that they'd want to keep Cam Johnson, but maybe you give up Cam Johnson. I think it just depends on what Brooklyn ultimately wants. But this is the piece that has to be included. And I know many Suns fans, because I've talked about this potential trade in the past, long before Kevin Durant ever even said he wanted to be traded. I just said that the Phoenix Suns, if Kevin Durant ever was to be traded, Phoenix Suns make the most sense. And in that case, you have to trade Mikal Bridges. And I know many people don't want it. All the Suns fans in that video were all telling me how Mikal Bridges is the second coming of Jordan and how you can't trade him and he's too good, he's too talented. Look, I understand that, but you're talking about Kevin Durant. Mikal Bridges will likely never even come close to Kevin Durant. He's the third option on this team. Yes, he is great defensively, but Kevin Durant is a good defender. In many cases, he has shown he is a above defender. The problem is like a team like Brooklyn, he has to do everything. So it's hard for him to play defense, put up 30, 40 points, rebound, assist, do everything, be the playmaker, all of that. But we've seen him be a great defender. I mean, Golden State, I don't know if you need to, but go back and watch the defensive plays and schemes that he was running. He is a great defender when need be. And yes, I get it. Mikal Bridges, he's young. He's a great player. And he may develop into a great player. But realistically, he's not even a top 10, not even a top 20 player in the league. And he's, 3 years from his prime. And he's always going to be that on the Phoenix Suns. He's never going to be that number one guy as long as Chris Paul and Devin Booker are there, right? And yes, he does do a lot and he does benefit from the Phoenix Suns in many ways, and he is very helpful. But you're talking about arguably the greatest player on the planet right now, and a guy that automatically wins you a championship, right? If you had Kevin Durant instead of Mikal Bridges, chances are you probably win that Bucks series because they were up 2-0, all of that stuff. Like, they were looking good, and then they just fell apart. Kevin Durant likely gets you where you need to be. Kevin Durant likely wins you that series. And you got to keep in mind, Phoenix Suns have never won an NBA championship, ever. Think of all the historically great teams that they have had. And I don't think a lot of people keep in mind how hard it is to win an NBA championship. Outside of the Lakers and the Celtics, I mean, there are teams in the league that have never even been to a finals, let alone even sniffed an NBA championship. And for the Phoenix Suns to do that, they need a guy like Kevin Durant. I mean, you have Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker. That's the best team in the league, hands down. Right now, that is the best team. Unless something crazy happens, that is the best team. I mean, you can make an argument if Kyrie does go to the Lakers, which I do think happens. I can understand the argument there. You got LeBron and KD kind of wash, let's say. You have Chris Paul and Kyrie, let's say they wash. And then Anthony Davis is, I think, your ace factor, right? How good can he be? If he can be bubble Anthony Davis, then I think that would be an incredible series. But there's no way you're getting Kevin Durant without giving up Bridges because you can't give up Devin Booker. And I don't even think, even if you could, I think the decision's easy. You keep Booker and you get rid of Bridges. And as great as Bridges maybe one day will be, he's not going to be that on the Phoenix Suns. And he has an opportunity to go to a team where he could be the number one guy, and we can see what he really becomes. And for the Phoenix Suns, you're automatically likely going to the finals, unless something crazy happens and injuries and stuff. But even if let's say Chris Paul gets hurt, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant is good enough to get you at least to probably the conference finals, if not the NBA finals, just the two of them. I mean, just the scoring and just the things, the impact that Kevin Durant has on a team is unlike Bridges. Like, that is a non-factor. I mean, the GMs would be fired for not giving up Mikal Bridges for Kevin Durant. If you have an opportunity to get Kevin Durant, you do whatever it takes. And the problem is that the Phoenix Suns don't give up Bridges. I'm telling you, you're not going to get Kevin Durant. It's just not going to happen. And you have Kevin Durant for 4 years. You're not talking about a guy that, you're getting for a year or two. You're going to have him locked up for the long haul. You very likely win several championships even, and you know what you're established. This Phoenix Suns team, as constructed, yes, I think that they are still a contender, but they're not there's no guarantee you're going to win a championship. And I'm not saying that there's a guarantee you win a championship with Kevin Durant, but your chances of that go up tremendously. You're talking about essentially swapping Mikal Bridges for Kevin Durant. You can't tell me that's a fair swap. Like, Kevin Durant is 10 times out of 10 times better. If you were picking your team right now, even if you're a Suns fan, if you could pick between all the players in the NBA, right, you could pick one to add. Kevin Durant is probably that player. or if you had two choices, Kevin Durant or Mikal Bridges, right? Right now, pick up, let's go, run. You're picking Kevin Durant. You might want to be, biased. You might want to say, oh no, like whatever. Reality is reality. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. He is incredible. All the headaches, all whatever. If you get him in the right environment, you're winning championships. We saw that with Golden State. It wasn't even fair. And I don't think that this is Kevin Durant to Golden State unfair, but this could very well be an unfair advantage for the Phoenix Suns, and you're very likely going to win your first NBA championship, which they've never won. And I think at this point, you need to push your chips to the table. You need to do whatever is necessary in order to put yourself in the position to win a championship. If you don't give up Bridges, there are too many other teams that have better packages, more draft picks, more younger players, more things that they could give up and would be willing to give up to go get a Kevin Durant. I mean, the Boston Celtics could trade, Brown or Tatum. I mean, seriously, that's of a discussion. Supposedly, there are reports that the Celtics are contemplating that. And so if you don't give up Bridges, you have too many teams that can give up far better packages, and now you're stuck. And you're very likely not going to win a championship. I don't think that this Phoenix Suns team, if the Lakers get Kyrie, are better than the Lakers. But with Kevin Durant, like I said, there's an argument to be made. Because Kyrie, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James are better than Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Mikal Bridges. It's a reality. It is what it is. I mean, chemistry and things do go into effect, things like that. But if you're talking even playing field, the Lakers win that series, win that matchup. And, I still think the Warriors are better than the Phoenix Suns as currently constructed. But I don't think they're better with Kevin Durant. I just think at this point, you do whatever you can. If you're the Phoenix Suns and Kevin Durant really does want to go to Phoenix, you do whatever is necessary and whatever is possible to go get Kevin Durant and get him in a Suns jersey. You're very likely winning a championship. And I understand, and I know I'm probably still going to get comments from people that are like, you don't trade Bridges, all that stuff. I'd rather have Bridges than Kevin Durant and all that silliness. I understand there's the casual fans and then the real fans and the people that understand how this game works. You don't win championships unless you have stars. I mean, we see it time in and time out. The Milwaukee Bucks, they had Giannis, who's arguably the best player in the NBA. In my opinion, he is the best player in the NBA. You had Middleton, you had Holiday, and you had a bunch of role players. You had three incredibly good guys that all were just fantastic. And you had all these great role players around them, right? The Lakers, when they won the championship, they had LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Again, two guys. The Warriors have won every year besides that, right? And guess what? They have several stars, right? And then even Toronto, they had stars. They had Kawhi, guys like that. Lowry, they were great. I mean, it took the entire Warriors team essentially, falling apart for them to win a championship, but still, they had stars. And you need those type of stars to win championships. Mikal Bridges, maybe one day he turns into one of those stars, but right now he is not that. And if you have an opportunity to win a championship, you do it right now. But as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think, yes, whatever it takes, you get Kevin Durant into a Suns jersey? Don't give up Devin Booker. You give up Bridges. You give up Ayton. You Crowder, if you have to, Cam Johnson. Because Kevin Durant's going to demand an incredible trade package. Because the Brooklyn Nets do not want to. They want to still contend. They don't want to rebuild. They don't have any assets to tank. They don't. The Brooklyn Nets don't have a draft pick till like 2027. So they can't afford to tank. They have to take the best package available, and they have to get the best players available for them to remain competitive. So they're going to take whatever that is. And then, the Phoenix Suns are going to look back and go, God, we should have given up Bridges. We would have had him. And especially if he goes to a team like the Celtics and they win the NBA championship, right? Now everyone's going to be like, why didn't Phoenix just give up Bridges? That's the kind of stuff that gets your franchise just destroyed and your GM fired and everything like that. Because you have the entire fan base turn on him. And then a lot of the people that are like, oh, like you should never trade Kevin Durant for Mikal Bridges. A lot of those people, guess what, are going to be like, they should have traded for Kevin Durant, because that's just how the internet works. It's just how sports fans work, things like that. If you look at this from an unbiased perspective, you just look at this as like, what gives me the best opportunity to win, which is a GM's job. That is the GM's job. It's not to care about the fans and emotions and how much we like this guy or anything. It's putting the best players available on the court to try to win championships. And if you look at it from that perspective, you go get Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant is a way better upgrade. I mean, it's not even close, the comparison between Kevin Durant and Bridges. You go get Kevin Durant and you try to win championships. But again, would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.